my name is Wayne. I am the Lone Headbanger. Thank you so much for joining me on this Wednesday's mental health session. So, this week I'm going to be focusing on medication and the effects of it. Obviously I'll be focusing on my experience with it, not so much other people. But I can at least give you what's happened to me when I've gone onto medication and both the good and the bad sides of it, just in case it's something that you are considering yourself. So I do want to begin though by saying a massive thank you to anyone who has subscribed to the channel or watched one of the videos. As it stands, I'm at 42 subscribers and I've got a few videos creeping closer and closer to 100 views, and that's amazing. That's something that I never thought would happen, if getting a video to nearly 100 views. So that's a massive help, and seeing that my subscribers had jumped by about 10 the other day, I was really pleased. So that's boosted my self-esteem a little bit, and it's made me more confident to carry on doing this. So like I said, for anyone who's watched the videos, left feedback, commented, subscribed, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It means the world. Anyway, I'm going to try and keep this one a little shorter than usual because I know I've been rambling on the last few. So let's get going. So obviously you are aware at this point that I do struggle with my mental health myself. Sometime last year I took the decision to start myself back on medication again. I tried several different kinds before, can't think of any names offhand, but the one that seems to work for me is one called sertraline. I take 150 milligrams a day, so it's 2 tablets, 100 milligram and a 50, along with my usual vitamins, cod liver oil and antihistamines. So I have that many pills in the morning, it's a wonder I don't rattle when I jump up and down. But it's one of those things where I needed something to help me out, and I knew that I wasn't going to get there on my own. So it was the logical choice to start something along those lines. So the problem with this kind of medication is that, as they always warn you, you will not see any benefits to it for the first few months, but you will probably experience a multitude of side effects, which is obviously not what you want to hear, but it's worth getting through the bad to get to the good. I distinctly remember when I started taking mine again, the very first day I took them, I was feeling nauseous for the entire day. Literally, I was lying on my bed, I was miserable and my head was clouded anyway, because of the depression and the anxiety. But I took the sertraline and I was pretty much bedbound. I wasn't actually sick, but I just felt like the entire day I was going to throw up. See, my previous symptoms to do with the depression, I've been struggling so much with things like memory loss and inability to focus, which are both symptoms of depression, which obviously doesn't help with things like work, when your mind keeps wandering or thinking about too many things all at once and you can't focus on your task at hand. And when someone's asked you to do something and literally 3 seconds later you've forgotten it. It's one of the worst things that I've experienced, the lack of memory. It's really tough, and it's not something that I've experienced before. So those are the symptoms, and then obviously with the nausea and the general confusion added by taking the medication as well, I was in for a pretty rough time. Obviously those side effects are not very pleasant. However, it didn't take long before I did notice a change in my thinking and my behaviour. Now, once the meds started to get into my system, initially I did start to feel more down, and it really felt like I was being dragged down even further, and it became a real struggle to do anything. But with perseverance, literally, I mean, we're talking months, and I mean about 6 months later, my perspective started to change a little bit, and I even noticed it one particular day when something annoyed me, and then I was able to just drop it and let it go, where normally I'd have been eaten up by something which annoyed me. I can't remember exactly what it was, memory problems, but I distinctly remember the feeling of, I let that go. That was something that would have bothered me immensely, and it didn't, and I was able to just let it slip by. And that's when I realised that's the meds working, because signs of frustration and being wound up is tied in with anxiety. Now, sertraline is supposed to help with anxiety as well as depression, so that really helped. So now, I mean, I've been taking sertraline now at that dosage for almost a year, I think, and it's entered my system fully, and I can actually give you a proper reading on how I feel at the moment and what it's like actually being on sertraline. So, as I said, this is 150 milligrams a day, tablet form, and the doctors do ask me to check up with them now and again to ensure that the dosage is still correct. I did think about raising it at some point or another, but I don't think that's actually necessary at this point. I think we're okay. But day-to-day life on sertraline, for me, may be different for other people, it's very grey. Now, that sounds negative, but it isn't. What I mean by grey is there's no extremes. So, on the downside, I can't remember the last time I was really excited about something. Whether it's festivals, gigs, I mean, obviously with COVID and everything being closed down now, it's kind of difficult anyway. But honestly, I can't remember when even when a new Transformer or something was released, which is something I would get excited about. I can't feel it. That emotion isn't there. Like, I don't look forward to anything, which is a little sad in its own respect, because if you've got nothing to look forward to, then life you'd think would become quite a bleak place. But then you've got the positive side, because it also stops the extreme the other way, so I don't get any extreme negative emotions, so I'm not quite as afraid of things anymore. I'm not feeling so much fear. As I said, with anger and frustration, I'll get frustrated and then maybe minutes later it'll have bled off and it'll have gone, which isn't like me at all. So it's a blessing, but it just means that certain emotions are gone, and in that respect I feel like I'm incomplete at the moment. I feel like I'm rebuilding, but there's certain sections of me aren't there yet. I'm still struggling with motivation, that's still tough. But if I feel bad about something, like if I haven't done weights on a particular day, for example, if I feel bad about that, that feeling will soon fade, and I'll be able to do something positive with the rest of my day and make up for it, which wouldn't have been possible before. I would have simply just wallowed in self-pity and kept kicking myself. So there is a plus to it. But the weird thing about being on these tablets, this sertraline, is knowing that I'm not feeling these emotions, if that makes any sense. I know that there are certain situations and certain emotions that I should be feeling, and there's a complete absence of that feeling. So it's like I sense the absence of the feeling that's supposed to be there. Like with the frustration, with the lack of temper, I know that I would be frustrated at certain circumstances and certain situations. I know I would, but I'm not, and it doesn't feel right because I know how I'd react, and I'm not reacting that way. So I feel like it's a personality change in that respect. So it's a bit weird, it's a bit strange, and it's the same as I said with the excitement. It's like when something gets announced that when Bloodstock announcements come up and I see bands I really, really would like to see, and I think yay, and then that's it. But I know in my heart that I would really be excited about seeing bands like Dark Tranquillity have appeared, and Necrogoblicon turned up on the lineup as well. But the emotions wasn't there, and it's really strange. And I've got this horrible feeling that because I'm so emotionless out and about at the moment, that people are going to mistake that for ignorance when they tell me something, and maybe I won't show as much interest as I normally would, that they'll mistake that for ignorance, and that's a slight concern of mine. But it's worth it for the positive effect that it's having on my psyche. I don't think I'd actually be here if I hadn't started on these meds. I seriously think that I would have done something regrettable by this point. I mean, it's taken a little bit of strength of will to get through the rough start when the meds make you feel worse. But after that, with the help of plenty of support from my therapist and my friends, we've built ourselves up to this stage. And I'm content to be at this stage for the time being, while I know that I'm a work in progress. It's not a permanent state of affairs. We're not going to be here forever. We're not going to be on this at this mental stage forever. What I'm doing is I'm taking the sertraline to block the negative sides out, and then I'm also seeing a therapist who is giving me sort of life advice of how to cope day to day. Things like CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, even. Things like that, and the things I've discussed before, things like grounding and perspective changes. And they are all helping me to reevaluate the way I see things, and also lifting my mood, raising my self-esteem. So at some point or another I will be able to drop the sertraline a little bit, because my own mental facilities will take over and they'll be strong enough to support me without the need for the medication. That's not close. We're not there, not even close to being there. But we are on the way. And that can only be a good thing, right? So I'm going to keep up with it. That's all I can do. To keep plodding on, as I say, keep taking the tablets. But I also have to put a lot of faith in my therapist and what they're telling me, and take that advice on board. Because it's far too easy to dismiss what they're saying. But it doesn't matter how daft it sounds. If you've spoken to a professional, if they're giving you advice, just try it. And take it seriously. Don't just do it as a throwaway thing, because it's the little things sometimes that'll pick you up. So I'm going to end the video now with just a quick finish off. As I said, I'm on the sertraline because a year ago a friend of mine told me that I was struggling. I was trying to fight through and they said, no, you are struggling. I tried to deny it, and the look they gave me suggested otherwise. And at that point I rang, I believe it was Dudley Talking Therapies or someone like that, one of the therapy services, and I started my road to where I am now. My point is don't be afraid to ask for help. I was letting pride get in my way, and it took somebody literally pointing a finger at me and giving me the sternest look. It wasn't even stern, it was almost sad to see me denying what was going on. And I even said, I'm doing it again, aren't I? I'm denying there's a problem. And they nodded. And that's when I realised, okay, so there is a problem. Serious. I mean, I knew there was a problem, but at that point I realised I needed to do something about it. But don't be afraid to ask for help. Pride's a killer. Pride is an absolute killer, and it's pointless. I see no sense in pride. All it does is make you suffer more and struggle through situations that you don't need to. There's no harm in asking for help. I'm not sure how accurate this statistic is anymore, but I saw it somewhere that about 60% of the general workforce is medicated. About 60%. That's in this country. Is medicated in one form or another. So if you think you're struggling, you are not the only one. It doesn't matter who admits it and who doesn't. There are people out there that are struggling just as much. Maybe more, maybe less, depending on the person and their outlook, let's say, and their mindset. But as I said, the point is, if you need help, go and get it. There's no harm in it. If you go and see a therapist, cry at them if you need to. That's what they're there for. They'll have seen worse. Believe me, they'll have seen worse than that. But if you are going to go and see a therapist, and if you are going to take medication, take it seriously. You're not supposed to drink on things like sertraline now. I've been a bit naughty the last couple of weeks. And, yeah. It hasn't played too much havoc with me, but I had a down day this week, and I think that's because the alcohol in my system kind of made my medication jump a little bit, and so it kind of blocked it out, and my body was like, "Oh, that's a bit weird." I wasn't bad, but I could feel that I was in a negative state of mind, which wasn't good, and nothing in particular triggered it. So I imagine it was the alcohol. But if you can stay focused, you can get better, but you need to take it seriously. And that's all I'd ask of anybody. If you're going to get help, step one is getting the help. Step two is maintaining. And that's the hard bit. It's easy enough to go and see the doctor and get some medication, but then you've got to work on yourself to get yourself out of that pit. And that's the tough part. But with the right therapist and the right medication, I believe you can do it, and you can dig yourself out of any hole. And right now, I'm living proof of that. So, that went on a little bit longer than I expected, but so I'm going to close off now and say medication is a tool to help you get better. Therapy is a tool to help you get better. Those tools are there. If you're struggling, use them. My name's Wayne. I am the Lone Headbanger, as always. It's a grim world out there, especially grim at the moment. I can see how dark it is, and it's throwing down with rain, so it's especially a grim world out there. But we've got the strength to get through it, and sometimes we all need a little help. So just embrace it. So with that, stay strong, stay safe. I'll see you next week.